My loving audience take my love and subscribes my channel. And dive B&B stories. Rich hears shocking news about Dylan and Will. The bold and the beautiful spoilers and commentary ***. Was Rich really prepared for what he was about to hear about Dylan and Will? Or is this the beginning of a much bigger family disaster? Because right now, Dylan and Will are walking straight into the kind of situation Rich Forrester hates most. It is messy, emotional, and impossible to control. And the latest spoilers make it clear that their connection is no longer something the family can simply ignore. Sun Community 1. 4 months Will and Dylan have been circling each other. First it was friendship. Then came the emotional support. Then the kisses. Then the feelings. And now, according to the latest spoilers, the two are heading toward a much more intimate turning point. That is exactly why Rich could soon have a serious problem on his hands. But here is the question I keep coming back to. Does Rich actually care about Dylan and Will as a couple? Or does he care about what their relationship could do to the Forrester family? That difference matters. Because Rich has never been the kind of man who watches family drama from the sidelines. When he thinks someone is threatening the people he loves, he steps in. Sometimes he protects them. Other times he pushes too hard and creates an even bigger mess. And Dylan may be the last person Rich expected to become part of this particular problem. Let's go back to where this all started. Dylan did not enter Will's life as some obvious romantic rival. She came into the picture when Will and Electra were together. Will and Electra had their own relationship, their own problems, and their own complicated history. Dylan was initially presented as someone who needed help and found a place to stay at the beach house. Will opened the door. That decision seemed harmless at first. But soap fans know better. In a world like The Bold and the Beautiful, the person who enters your home because they need help can eventually become the person standing between you and the relationship you thought was secure. That is basically what happened here. Dylan became close to Will. She appreciated his kindness. She leaned on him emotionally. And eventually, those feelings stopped looking completely innocent. Earlier in the year, Dylan kissed Will. And later she openly admitted that she loved him. Those moments were important because they showed that her feelings were not simply a passing crush. There was something deeper developing. At the same time, Will was clearly struggling with his own emotions and his unresolved feelings for Electra. And honestly, this is where I think Will deserves more criticism than he has received. Will was hurting. That is understandable. But being hurt does not automatically make every decision you make a good one. There is a psychological difference between wanting someone and needing someone because you are emotionally wounded. Will had just lost Electra. And Dylan was right there offering comfort. That can create a powerful emotional bond very quickly. Sometimes you do not fall in love because the timing is perfect. Sometimes you become attached because someone happens to be standing beside you when your world is falling apart. That is why Dylan and Will are so dangerous as a couple right now. Their connection may be genuine, but the timing is terrible. And that brings us directly back to Rich. Rich has already been deeply involved in the conflicts surrounding Will and Electra. He pressured Electra to make a choice between her relationship with Will and her position at Forrester. That decision was not small. It helped push the young couple toward a breaking point. So imagine Rich learning that Will has now moved closer to Dylan. Would he see it as a harmless new romance? I doubt it. Rich could easily see this as another complication created by Will. And that is where the psychology becomes fascinating. Rich is a man who likes to believe he can identify trouble before it reaches the family. When he sees a situation becoming unstable, his instinct is to take control. The problem is that control can become interference. And interference can make young people even more determined to do exactly what you told them not to do. That is my biggest concern for Rich. If he comes down too hard on Will and Dylan, he may actually push them closer together. Think about it. If Rich says, "This relationship is a mistake," Dylan may hear, "You are not good enough for this family." If Rich attacks Will may hear, "My father figure is trying to control my life again." And when people feel cornered, they often stop listening. That is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is psychology. People want to feel that they are making their own choices. Especially young adults who are already dealing with complicated family expectations. Dylan is also an interesting case because her behavior suggests she is not simply chasing Will because he is attractive. There is something emotional underneath it. Will helped her when she was vulnerable. He gave her a place to stay. He treated her with kindness when she needed it most. That kind of support can create gratitude, attachment, and eventually romantic feelings. But there is another possibility. Dylan may also be searching for security. And that is where Katie's suspicion becomes important. Recent spoilers specifically indicate that Katie has become suspicious of Dylan's motives, while Electra and Dylan have already had a heated confrontation. Katie's reaction should not be dismissed. She may be seeing something that everyone else is ignoring. Dylan has moved from living in her car to staying at the beach house, then finding work at Forrester, and becoming increasingly close to Will. That is a huge transformation in a short amount of time. From Dylan's point of view, maybe it is simply luck. From Katie's point of view, it may look like a pattern. And from Ridge's point of view, could look like a threat to his family. That is why I think the coming confrontation could be much bigger than a simple argument about romance. Ridge may start asking questions. Why is Dylan getting so close to Will? What does she really want? Does she genuinely love him? Or has Will become the easiest path into the Spencer and Forrester worlds? Now, I want to be fair to Dylan here. Suspicion does not equal guilt. There is currently a difference between having questionable timing and having malicious intentions. Dylan may genuinely care about Will. In fact, her behavior makes more sense if we assume she does. She has repeatedly shown emotional interest in him. Even when Will was still struggling with Electra, she has tried to comfort him, make him laugh, and encourage him to move forward. At times that has crossed boundaries, but that does not automatically mean she is manipulating him. And this is where I disagree with the idea that Dylan is simply a villain. She is not. She is complicated. And complicated characters are far more interesting. Her biggest flaw may not be evil intent. It may be impatience. She wants the relationship she imagines with Will before Will has fully finished dealing with the relationship he lost. That is a dangerous emotional shortcut. Will, meanwhile, has his own responsibility. He cannot keep one foot in his past and one foot in his future forever. At some point he has to decide. Does he still want Electra? Does he want Dylan? Or does he need to step away from both women until he understands what he actually wants? Because right now, every choice he makes affects everyone around him. And that includes Ridge. There is another layer here that I think viewers should pay attention to. Ridge and Will are connected through a much larger family conflict. Will is Bill Spencer's son. Ridge is one of the central figures of the Forrester family. The Forrester-Spencer rivalry has always carried emotional baggage. Even when the younger generation wants to move beyond it, the older generation keeps dragging history into the present. So if Will and Dylan become serious, this is not just two young people dating. It potentially connects the Spencer family and Forrester family in another complicated way. And Ridge may hate the lack of control that comes with that. Because Ridge cannot control love. He can control business decisions. He can issue warnings. He can make demands. He can protect Forrester creations. But he cannot tell someone who to love and expect the heart to obey. That is the lesson Ridge keeps getting forced to learn. And he does not always learn it quickly. Now let's talk about the biggest trigger. Electra. Because there is no way to discuss Dylan and Will without discussing the emotional wreckage left behind by Will and Electra. The latest spoilers show that Will and Electra reach another painful impasse, while Dylan and Will continue moving in a different direction. And that creates a brutal emotional triangle. Electra may not want Will anymore. But that does not mean she wants to watch him happily move on with Dylan. Those are two very different things. You can know a relationship is over, and still feel jealous when your former partner finds someone else. That is human. And Dylan may underestimate how powerful that emotion can become. If Electra sees Dylan and Will together, she may not react calmly. Especially because Dylan was once her friend. That makes the betrayal feel personal. This is not just, my ex found another woman. It becomes, my friend moved in while I was still emotionally bleeding. And that is much harder to forgive. The confrontation between Electra and Dylan already shows how explosive this friendship has become. Now imagine Ridge getting involved after hearing about it. That could turn one romantic problem into a full family crisis. Ridge could side with Electra. He could defend Forrester's interests. He could question Dylan. He could confront Will. And if he does all of that at once, the situation could explode. But there is something else I find even more interesting. What if Ridge is not angry because Dylan is with Will? What if he is angry because Will has once again become connected to a situation that is hurting someone in the Forrester family? That would fit Ridge's personality much better. Ridge has repeatedly shown that his emotions become strongest when he thinks someone he loves is being disrespected or harmed. So his anger may not be romantic jealousy. It may be protective instinct. But protective instincts can still become destructive when they are mixed with ego. And Ridge has plenty of ego. Let's be honest. Ridge does not like being told he is wrong. If he decides Dylan is bad news for Will, convincing him otherwise could be almost impossible. And if Katie is also suspicious, Ridge may feel that his concerns are being confirmed. That could give him even more confidence. But there is a huge danger here. What if Katie is wrong? What if Dylan's motives are actually sincere? Then Ridge could end up attacking someone who does not deserve it. And that would make Dylan even more sympathetic. Imagine Ridge confronting her. Imagine Dylan finally pushing back. Instead of quietly accepting the accusation, she tells Ridge that she never asked to become part of his family drama. She never asked Will to choose her. She simply developed feelings for someone who treated her with kindness. That kind of confrontation could completely change how viewers see Dylan. Because suddenly she is not the outsider trying to get inside. She is a woman defending her right to make her own choices. And Ridge would have to decide whether he respects that. Personally, I think that would be a much stronger story than simply turning Dylan into a schemer. Give her motives. Give Ridge reasons to doubt her. Give Will reasons to defend her. Then let the audience decide. That is how you create real soap drama. Now the biggest question is what happens next. Recent spoilers for the week beginning August 24th say Will and Dylan are set to share a special night alone, while Katie becomes even more suspicious of Dylan. Dylan is also expected to defend her actions and later face her past. That is huge. Because a special night alone could push Will and Dylan beyond the point of pretending this is just friendship. And once that happens, there is no easy way back. If Will chooses Dylan emotionally, then Electra becomes the past. But if Will wakes up the next morning and realizes he still wants Electra, Dylan could be devastated. And that is why the psychological stakes are so high. Dylan wants certainty. Will wants emotional relief. Those are not necessarily the same thing. A person looking for comfort can make promises they are not ready to keep. A person looking for love can mistake attention for commitment. And a person who is afraid of being alone can rush into a relationship because loneliness feels worse than uncertainty. That is the emotional trap Will is facing. Dylan may be offering him something warm and uncomplicated. But his life is not uncomplicated. He still has family conflict. He still has Electra. He still has problems with RJ. And he still has Ridge watching the situation from the outside. So even if Dylan and Will have a beautiful night together, that does not mean the problems disappear. In fact, it may create even more. Because now there is something real to lose. And that changes everything. There is also RJ. Never underestimate RJ's role in this mess. RJ and Will already have a history of conflict. The rivalry has repeatedly spilled into family and workplace problems. And spoilers have shown that RJ has actively pushed Ridge and Steffi to take action against Will. That means RJ is unlikely to sit quietly while Will becomes involved with Dylan. Especially if RJ has his own romantic history with Dylan. And that is another bomb waiting to explode. If RJ learns that Dylan and Will are becoming serious, he may feel betrayed. If Electra learns it, she may feel betrayed. If Katie believes Dylan is manipulating everyone, she may become even more suspicious. And if Ridge hears all of these accusations at once, good luck keeping that family dinner peaceful. This is why I think Ridge hearing shocking news about Dylan and Will could become the beginning of a much larger storyline. The relationship itself is only one piece. The real story is about trust. Who deserves it? Who has earned it? And who is pretending to be something they are not? Ridge's challenge is going to be separating facts from fear. Because fear makes people react. Trust makes people listen. And Ridge is usually much better at reacting. Now let's make a prediction. I think Ridge will initially take a hard line against Dylan and Will. He may question Dylan's intentions. He may warn Will that he is making another emotional mistake. And he may believe that Will is repeating the same pattern that caused problems with Electra. But I do not think Will simply back down. That is where the conflict gets interesting. Will has spent too much time being told what other people think is best for him. Bill has opinions. Rich has opinions. RJ has opinions. Electra has opinions. Dylan has opinions. But what does Will actually want? That is the question the story needs to answer. And if Will finally chooses Dylan, I think Ridge will struggle with it. Not because Dylan is necessarily dangerous, but because Ridge may see the relationship as another unpredictable element entering the Forrester family orbit. And if Dylan's past eventually comes back to haunt her, Ridge will probably say, "I told you so." But even then, he may not be completely right. Because people can have complicated pasts and still change. Dylan's history does not automatically define her future. That is another psychological point worth remembering. People who have experienced instability often become extremely focused on finding security. Sometimes that makes them cling harder to relationships. Sometimes it makes them take risks they would otherwise avoid. If that is what is happening with Dylan, then her behavior may be less about manipulation and more about survival. But survival instincts can still hurt other people. That is the contradiction. And that is exactly why Katie's suspicion matters. She may be picking up on Dylan's desperation without fully understanding where it comes from. Maybe Dylan wants Will. Maybe she wants stability. Maybe she wants acceptance. Maybe she wants all three. And perhaps she does not even know which one matters most. That uncertainty could become her biggest weakness. Now let's talk about Will's psychology one more time. Will has spent a lot of time trying to prove himself. He is Bill Spencer's son, which comes with enormous expectations. He has also been caught between Spencer and Forrester conflicts. He wants love, but he also wants respect. He wants freedom, but he also wants approval. That creates an internal tug-of-war. Dylan gives him emotional validation. Electra represented a relationship he genuinely wanted. Ridge represents a powerful voice telling him what is acceptable. And RJ represents the rival who keeps challenging him. No wonder Will is struggling. But at some point, the audience should demand accountability from him. He cannot keep allowing everyone else to fight over his life. He needs to make a choice. And then live with it. If he chooses Dylan, he needs to be honest with Electra. If he chooses Electra, he needs to stop giving Dylan mixed signals. And if he chooses neither, he needs to stop using Dylan as emotional support while knowing she wants more. That is what maturity looks like. And honestly, that is the storyline I want to see. Not just another love triangle. I want consequences. I want characters to face the emotional damage their decisions create. Because otherwise, the drama becomes repetitive. But if Will makes a choice and Rich challenges him, suddenly we have something bigger. Father versus son. Spencer versus Forrester. Past versus future. Love versus loyalty. And Dylan is standing right in the center of it. That is explosive. There is also one more possibility. I have a feeling fans are going to be very divided on this one. Personally, I think Ridge should be careful. He can warn Will. He can tell him what he sees. But he should not try to control the outcome. Because Will is old enough to learn from his own choices. And Dylan deserves the chance to prove whether her feelings are genuine. If she is sincere, Ridge's interference could turn her into the very person he fears. If she is hiding something, however, the truth will eventually come out. Either way, the pressure is building. And the biggest shock may not be that Dylan and Will are getting closer. The biggest shock may be what happens after Ridge finds out. Because once Ridge decides someone is a threat to his family, he rarely walks away quietly. And this time he may be dealing with someone who refuses to back down. So buckle up, because this Dylan and Will storyline is nowhere near finished. We could be heading toward a major confrontation, a painful betrayal, and possibly a secret from Dylan's past that changes everything. And if Will chooses Dylan while Electra is still dealing with her feelings, expect the emotional fallout to spread far beyond the beach house. That is when Ridge could realize this is not just young love. It is a family problem. And family problems on the bold and the beautiful have a way of becoming everybody's problem. So what do you think? Is Will making the right choice by getting closer to Dylan? Or is he simply trying to fill the hole Electra left behind? And if you were Ridge, would you confront Dylan immediately? Or would you stay out of it and let Will learn the hard way? Drop your opinion in the comments because this is one storyline where there is no easy answer. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next bold and the beautiful spoiler update. And remember, on BNB, the person standing quietly in the background is often the one carrying the biggest secret. Until next time, stay tuned. Because Rich may have just heard the news that changes everything.